Good morning, students. Once again, we are back with the live classes, but this time it's not live in a way as it should be. But here we will do the explanation of this chapter because now onwards the chapter will be not easy, they will be a little difficult, and we have to prepare for the boards. So here we are going to start the explanation from chapter number 5, which is the Muslim League and the Lucknow Pact. Now, as per the little changes in the council, you can say the syllabus, there has been these two topics taken, but in a very smaller manner, and therefore we will do them slightly touching each and every aspect of these two parts, which are the Muslim League, the formation of Muslim League, as well as the Lucknow Pact. So first of all, we'll see what we are going to do in this chapter. We have the Muslim League and the Lucknow Pact. First of all, the first point that we'll be doing is the factors leading to the formation of league, that is basically Muslim League. Later in the school, in the classes, when you'll be doing the further chapters, you will come across another topic, that is Indian Independence League. So don't get confused between that. Here we can simply use it league, but then we will be using the proper name of both the leagues. So it is factors leading to the formation of Muslim League, and then second thing that we'll be doing, events leading to the formation of Muslim League. Now you might ask, what is the difference between factors and events? So the slight difference that we have is factors are the reasons which led to the formation of independence of Muslim League, while on the other hand we have events. These are the various things that happened which even instigated people more, drawing them towards the formation of Muslim League. So you can say all the factors were not the events, but all the events were basically the factors for the formation of Muslim League. Then next we have the aims and objectives of the Muslim League. Remember, whatever we are doing, these 1, 2 and 3 particular topics in this module, they are all related to the Muslim League. Lucknow Pact is the second part of the chapter that we'll be doing in the later portion of the chapter, maybe in the other module that is to come the other day. So here today we'll start only with the Muslim League. Now first of all, we see when revolt of 1857 started, since then or just after that, British started with their policy of divide and rule, and this was to bridge a gap between the two communities, Hindus and Muslims. And they did it because they knew, the reason was they knew that Indians, till they are united, are something that British will not be able to face if they unitedly take up a charge against the British. But they knew as and when the community divides and they fight among themselves, it will be an easier and a smooth ride for the British to rule over them in India. So that is why they always favored the policy of divide and rule, favoring one community at a time and showing hatred or dislike to the other community. Initially it was the Hindus who were supported, and later onwards we can say it were the Muslims who were supported by the British. So growth of communalism started since from 1857 only, we can say, and by this time it had become such a serious problem that the two communities could not work together, and at a particular time period it so happened that the Muslims decided to have their particular organization to be done so that all the Muslims in the country could come to a particular group, and that group should look after the benefits and should look after the objectives of their community, and that would be the Muslim League. So here we can say what were the factors which led to the formation of the Muslim League. First of all is loss of sovereignty by Mughal rulers. Mughal rulers were basically, British established their country, their supremacy in India just after dethroning the Mughals, and therefore they were all Muslims, Mughals, who were followers of Islam. Therefore Muslims were quite bitter against the British, and they participated in many of the movements which were against British, like one of them was Wahhabi movement, which aimed at to end the British dominion in India also. Now here we can say they also took part in the uprising of 1857 along with the Hindus, but they were charged for that particular uprising, and British totally ignored and neglected this community in the initial stages after the revolt. So this also made them totally against the British. They were totally, you can say, bitterly angry against the British and the British rule. However, after 1870s, the British changed their attitude towards the Muslims, and it was so that they started making new policies which were just for appeasing the Muslim community in order to undermine the national movement, or to make people away from the national movement by dividing the people on the basis of their religious communities. So they sowed the seed of dissension between the two communities and encouraged them to have communal problems and communal, you can say, rift and gaps in between. So that is the one of the reasons which, you can say, basically this was the initial reason why Muslim League was asked to be formed. Next we have British policy of divide and rule. We cannot call it as a next point. It is basically the elongation of the first point only. It was British Muslims were totally against the British, and British also wanted to have a seed of hatred and you can say disturbance between the two communities. And so to keep that seed, to keep that difference, they sowed a seed of communal difference. What was the seed? The seed was the policy of divide and rule. That means favoring one community, initially Hindus, and totally ignoring the Muslims, so that Muslims don't only become against and don't only get against the British, but they somewhere or the other, after a lot of lagging behind, after a lot of ignoring, they will feel themselves that they are totally Hindus are totally privileged and they are getting all the benefits, and they might turn against the Hindus. And then once this started, soon they started appeasing the Muslims, and when they started pleasing the Muslims and making out policies, listening to them, it turned the Hindus against them. And that is how the communal rights were brought out, communal problems were brought out, and this also led to a dissatisfaction among the two communities, that the other community will not take care of their people, and therefore Muslims, being in the minority at that moment, decided that they need to have their independent group which should look after their problems. Next, we can say relative backwardness of the Muslim community in education, trade and industry. Now we see after 1857, it was the Hindus who were benefited by the British policies and by the British various ways of living in society and community. Even the schools, they were allowing the Hindus, but the Muslims, as they were totally against the British, they kept their children away from the English schools, from the British schools, as well as when these people, when these young generation were not educated, they were not able to apply for the government jobs, for the better jobs, or for a better future. As a result, the entire community started lagging behind, and this made them lag behind not only in education but even in terms of trade, industry, economically, financially, and this was something which created even more dissatisfaction and frustration among the communities, and turning them totally against their Hindu contemporaries, and deciding to fight for their rights and getting their rights back through a particular group which would listen and you can say put their views of their problems in front of the British so that they could be heard. And that is why they decided they need a Muslim League. Next, we can say the role of Sir Syed Ahmed Khan. When you look into your books, whenever you have your books, or if you don't have, you can pay attention carefully. This is one of the important topics. Sir Syed Ahmed Khan was basically one of the great educationists and social reformer of that time. It was, he regarded Hindus and Muslims to be one qawm. One qawm means one nation. It was he, in his words, he said that Hinduism and Hindu and Islam, these are basically two eyes of a beautiful bride called India. And later onwards, it was he himself who made a comment saying that India is basically two different nations, Hindus and Muslims, living together, and where one is in a majority, one in a minority, and they cannot live in peace. So that is how the time changed, and the communities had dissatisfaction with each other, and how they all led to a formation of league. We see he founded Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College. It might be asked again and again in your short answers, who founded the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, or which college was formed by Sir Syed Ahmed Khan? Be very particular about this particular fact. Next, we see Under the influence of the principal of this Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, that was Mr. Beg, in 1880, he gave up his earlier views and now he totally turned against the contemporary community, and he started favoring his own community and trying to put a foot forward to stand for his community. It was said that Sir Syed Ahmed Khan believed that since the Hindus formed the majority of Indian population, they would dominate the Muslims in case the British withdraws from India, and then it will be a problematic situation for the Muslims because the Hindus in the majority will never listen to them and Muslims will not be able to get their rights. As a result, Muslims should be heard, should get equal importance in the country, and even they should get equal participation in the government. With this views, he decided that Muslims should also have a proper political formation of their own, and that is how they came up with the idea of having an organization, an India nationwide organization for the Muslims, and this was basically the thought of Muslim League. Next we see there were various erroneous interpretation of history, as we read in the first chapter 1857. As I told you that history was taught in such a way that basically the two communities should be totally against each other with hatred, because the history was taught in a very wrong manner. Some British and communal historians divided Indian history in their particular schools into three different parts, and that was the Hindu period, the Muslim period, and then the British period. And that is how they always told that Muslims were the intruders, invaders. They came, they looted and plundered India, and they you can say deteriorated the condition of the country. So all this was taught in such a way that Hindus, those who were studying over there, totally turned against the other community, and that is how the rift was created between the two communities. Next we see rise of assertive nationalism. When assertive nationalism became an important part of the national movement, it was some of their actions also misled, and it also although it led to the national unity and growth of nationalism only, but the speeches and actions of some of the assertive leaders some way or the other annoyed this particular section of the Indians. For example, when the old festivals were revived, it was only the Shivaji festival or the Ganpati festival which was revived, and it was totally related to the Hindus. It has nothing to do with the Islam or Muslims. Besides that, there were various great Mughal rulers and the Muslim rulers who had ruled India, and they were glorious. They formed a glorious past of Indian history, but they were never celebrated. The people who were celebrated were, you can say, Rana Pratap, and along with that it was Shivaji. All those people were celebrated, but never Akbar was taken into consideration. So in that regards also they felt that Muslim community was totally ignored. Besides that, when anti-partition movement took place, they took a holy bathe in river Ganga, which was sacred for the Hindus, and they tied yellow threads, which was basically a representation of the festival Rakhi, which was of Hindus, and that is how they always felt that it was totally a Hindu majority action which has been favoring the Hindu religion, whereas Muslims have been ignored. And that was the reason which also many people took as a particular motive for, or the reason for starting a new organization which will be for the benefit of the Muslims, listening and looking after the Muslim subjects and problems and reasons. Next we can say, next is the second topic that we'll be doing today, and that is events leading to the formation of Muslim League. As I told you earlier, factors and events. All the factors cannot be your events, but all the events were somewhere or the other factors also for the formation of Muslim League. So here we are doing the various events that took place, and they instigated more of this particular thought of starting a Muslim organization. And this was, first of all, the Hindi-Urdu controversy. Be very careful, this is one of the important but at the same time easier part of the chapter. You should always remember this. You can quote it as an example also in many of the answers. So Hindi-Urdu controversy was one in which, you can say, In UP, Urdu was the official language in the law and all the offices. So when it was done, many of the people came up with the request that Hindi should be made the official language over there for the working purpose. Therefore, as a particular demand you can say, on April 8, 1900, the government instructed that all petitions will be submitted in Hindi, and the court summons and official announcements to be issued in Hindi as well as in Urdu also. But this was not liked by the Muslims because they felt that Urdu had its backgrounds or the roots from the Islam, and that is why it has been removed, or people in India, the majority Hindus want Urdu to be removed and to be replaced by Hindi. So therefore a controversy started with this for months, and relations between the two communities became even more worse, although at the end both the languages were given equal status. But still this led to a big rivalry as well as a rift between the two communities. Next is foundation of the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College. This was the same college which was started by Sir Syed Ahmed Khan. The growing influence and popularity of Congress became one of the main concerns of British, because earlier British started Congress, helped them establishing the party because they thought it is an easy step for them to communicate directly with the common people and they can easily control the Congress. But then gradually Congress went out of their hands, and that is the time when they felt it is a thing of concern that British needs to control the Congress or stop its growing popularity. In order to do that, they started supporting Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College and the community which was supposed to start and work for over there in regards to the Muslim community and favoring them, so that they can find or stand up, they can find a particular standard against the Congress at par or at equal levels. And this was done with the help of the British, so that once both the communities have their own political organizations, they can fight against each other, stand against each other, and again the same divide and rule policy would help British to rule over both the parties, because they will be busy among themselves and British would be able to rule over all the larger picture. Then we see the Aligarh politics was an important role. It was Nawab Mohsen ul Mulk who led the Aligarh movement, and it was after the death of Sir Syed Ahmed Khan in around 1898. So he kept on fighting for that particular thing, and after his death it was Mohsen ul Mulk who led the entire you can say movement. The Aligarh movement worked to instill into the minds of the Muslims a spirit of loyalty towards the British movement, because now they understood that British is supporting them. So why not show them that we are going to be loyal to them, so that we can get more help and more of our benefits could be done more, so that we can reap more benefits from the British government. When Hindi-Urdu controversy raged in 1900, it was the Nawab was the secretary of MAO College. MAO means Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College. And he criticized the government order for granting equal status to Hindi as well as Urdu in UP. So after this, a lot of things started, and he was the one who led all the movements which were totally against the other community, or you can say which showed their loyalty towards the British, so that they can get in the good books of the British and get more of their purposes solved. They're getting more benefits. Next we see Partition of Bengal. Partition of Bengal also played as an important event which led to the formation of Muslim League. How? It was Partition of Bengal was given by Curzon, and it was divided into a particular way, saying that administration was not done properly because the province was too big. However, the real purpose was to stop the you can say nationalism, growing nationalism over there. And besides that, the stopping of nationalism would be done not by breaking the province, but rather breaking it in such a way that Muslim communities or the districts dominated by Muslim communities should fall on one side, whereas districts to be governed by the Hindu community would fall on the other side. And that is how creating a gap between the Hindu and the Muslim districts and the communities as well. So this was something which was done by the British on purpose, because when the people started anti-partition movements and all the agitation against this, they made the Muslim community convinced. They convinced them by saying that They really wanted a Muslim majority province, and the partition of Bengal is just an example, or you can say an answer to their request, because it has been formed in such a way that all the Muslim led or dominated districts have fallen in one particular province, and so they have given them the thing that the Muslims always desired or asked for. And this was one particular reason why and how the Muslims, most of them, withdrew from the national movement or the partition movement against the British, and British were once again able to successfully crush the movements. Then we say it was a Muslim deputation which went to Viceroy Lord Minto in Shimla. Here we see it is given. An address was prepared incorporating these suggestions. Now they came to you can say Lord Minto, where the Muslim deputation led by Aga Khan, and he came along with certain particular, you can say, requests or suggestions. They call it suggestions, but they were requests, and it was done in such a way that if that would be done, Muslims would, or Muslim community or the Muslim League will get a stronghold in the Indian politics or in the position of the dominance. So here they came with this particular thing, a delegation of 35 influential Muslims from all over the country. They were led by Aga Khan, and he went to the Viceroy in Shimla at that time on October 1, 1906. And he went over there having a conversation with him, with the Viceroy Lord Minto. He gave these suggestions that representation of Muslims in elected bodies should be done on the political importance and not on the basis of the population, because population obviously meant that Hindus would be given more preference, but political history meant that as long as Hindus have ruled almost equally, Muslims have also ruled over the nation, and in that regards both the communities should get equal representation. Separate electoral constituencies for Muslims in the provincial councils. So in the provincial councils, separate electorates should be given to the Muslims. That means their candidate, their voters, and their particular seat should be reserved. Next is preference to be given to Muslims while nominating members to the Viceroy Council. That means they would be able to nominate their members and increase more number of Muslim candidates in the Viceroy's Council. Besides that, they also asked reservation of seats for Muslims in the state services. Along with that, more state aid for promoting new Muslim universities. Wherever there are Muslim universities, state aid or state help should be given or granted to them, so that more and more development could be done through those universities, not only in the education but in all the spheres, and most importantly for the Muslim community, younger generation or the coming up generation. Now Viceroy received the deputation and expressed his sympathy, and later onward even told them that their wishes would be fulfilled later or sooner or later, and they will not be sent without disheartened, or will not be, you can say, left without any particular demand undone. So that is how they were convinced by the Viceroy, and later we see it did happen. Many of their demands were fulfilled, which gave a clear indication to the other community that British is favoring the Muslims right now, and that is why it will be difficult to form a particular community, a particular thing or a policy with their suggestions. They need to have the suggestions checked or verified by both the communities. So formation of the Muslim League. Now we move on to the third category, that is main aims and objectives. The success of Muslim deputation which was sent to Viceroy and was motivated the Muslims to ask for a separate political organization, because they thought that if a delegation of just 35 members can go and talk to the person and they are representing the people of all over the country, then why not have a more organized organization which would talk about all the rights and all the benefits or all the things for the Muslim community on the whole. And this gave them the idea that instead of having a delegation, they should have a proper organized pattern of a body which would be working for all these purposes. And so they came up with the idea of starting an organization called the Muslim League. So in December 1906, eminent Muslim leaders assembled at Dhaka in this particular regard, and with the Mohammedan Educational Conference, and arranged a meeting regarding this proposal. The proposal to form central organization for the Muslims all over the country was decided, and they came up with the idea of All India Muslim League, and this was set up on December 30, 1906. You can write it down somewhere as an important thing. All India Muslim League was set up on December 1906, and the first president, or you can say it was done under the presidentship of Nawab Salimullah. Nawab Salimullah was the first president of the Muslim League. Aga Khan was elected as permanent president of the Muslim League, and the headquarters of this Muslim League was at Aligarh. But its central office later onwards shifted to Lucknow in 1910. It was started in 1906. For 4 years, the headquarters were in Aligarh, and later they went on to they were shifted to Lucknow from 1910. The main objectives and aims of this organization were, there are 3 of them, you can remember them. First was to promote among the Muslims of India a support, or you can say a feeling of loyalty towards the British government, and remove the misconception regarding the intention of the government in regards to the Indian Muslims. For they felt that they were enemies, but now it was to develop a relationship of friendliness or loyalty towards the British, because they knew now British is favoring the community, and they can work even better unless and until they don't show their loyalty to the government. Second was to protect and advance the political rights and interests of the Muslims. Whatever they are going to do, they are going to aim for the betterment of the Muslims and the entire community in the country, and that should be giving or advancing the political rights and interests of the Muslims, taking them to the British and getting them properly done for the community. Third is to prevent the rise of feeling of hostility between the Muslims of India and other communities, even to stop any hostilities between the Muslims and the other communities, and hostilities among themselves also. So this was also one of the important right. They did not want any particular problems with the other community now, because they knew that their problems and their particular requests are being heard by the British. So it's better to show their loyalty to them, getting their advantage, and rather not getting into fights or into particular riots with the other community. Hardly did they know that British wanted that to happen, and that is why British kept on from time to time instigating that there should be some particular reason for the hatred between the two communities, because that was the basic reason for them to rule over India. But that we'll do later onwards. Next chapter we will talk about the Lucknow Pact and other such things. So for this today we will be doing only Muslim League. We have done all the 3 things. I guess you can keep them under a heading in your books. It is factors leading to formation of league, events leading to the formation of Muslim League, and then the aims and objectives we have done. You can pause this particular video to understand the topics that we have done and note down the important points, or I have sent you many a times the PDFs, so you can even copy from them. If you don't have, let me know, I'll send you the one and you can go through those pages or PDF if you don't have the book. But do read these particular pages in the chapter so that you have a better understanding of this topic. With this, we come to the end of the module. Thank you.